Hey, what's going on, guys? We've got a special guest here today. We have Laura Camacho. She's the host of Develop Your Executive Presence podcast and a seasoned expert in leadership and communication. Laura, we're so excited to have you on the podcast. What are most leaders missing in communication?
Oh, Jordan, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I love to talk to performance people because I get inspired by, all the discipline and the mindset that you and your guests bring to the table. And what most leaders are missing as far as communication is that they tend to focus by default too much on like proving themselves, proving that they're good enough, that they're capable enough, that they're earning the big bucks, that they are being paid. And they don't realize it's not so much that they're flailing or failing, but they're missing the opportunity to add value to the people that they work with and the company or whatever the endeavor is. So I would say that's the big piece is that it's just missed opportunity after missed opportunity. That's what I see.
Absolutely. Yeah, and one of the ways I found you can think about this is when you're constantly in conversations, is what I'm saying adding value?
Yes, exactly. And then it's not just what you say, though, it's how you say it. If you go on too long, people start to zone out, and you have to understand everybody's thinking if their Amazon packages has arrived or not, or they're thinking about lunch. Everybody's distracted. And a lot of times we have to share information at work, especially like a business briefing or an update on our progress. It's really not that like exciting, but if you can make it more interesting, you're adding value, and that value that you add to the conversation is always going to reflect back onto you. That's
Yeah,
that's the piece.
absolutely. And I think that comes from the energy levels.
Yes,
It's
that's a
hard for
big
us to
part of it.
show up at high energy levels, but
Yes.
sometimes I do, like for me, I'll do push-ups
Yeah.
and then I'll like do a thing like this. And
Okay.
it's just to get me in the zone.
Yeah.
We don't realize that we're all primed. Like we're all like we look at football players and they're like, why are they doing that? Like why are they getting pumped up before the game? Because if they have more adrenaline, if they have more excitement, then they're in a better place. Like right now with this podcast, I'm actually standing. I'm gonna
Yeah, I
stand.
can set, and I can tell, and I'm thinking, oh, I should have put my standing desk, which is actually a trash can, on top of my desk. But yes, you can tell the difference because of the energy level, and then that energy level is what puts you in your A game, versus just checking the boxes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then Laura, you've had a pretty incredible life.
Yeah.
What's led to a lot of your success, travel, decisions? Because one of the biggest things about this podcast is realizing, hey, there's many ways to live life. Some are good, some
Yes.
are bad, and how do we think about these different ways? So, what are some of the unique ones for yourself? Like I know you did travel, I know you started the business at a different age in life. So,
Yeah.
dive
Thank
into those.
you. Yeah, it's so good. Well, I have to credit my mom. She was an independent thinker, and one of the things she did when I was 12 was to remove the television from our home. So remember, this
Love
was
that.
before screens, and so as a middle schooler, that kind of takes away a lot of conversation fodder for you, and so but you learn to talk about other things, and I mean that's just one indication. And I grew up in the deep South, deep Southern roots, not international at all, but my grandmother, this is like a matriarch plug here, but my grandmother gave me a book when I was 4 years old that had different sayings in different languages. Like it would say, good morning, buenos dias,
Yeah.
bonjour, and literally, Jordan, that book changed the trajectory of my life because that somehow lit a fire in me like that. That is so cool. And
Yeah.
I self-studied like learning how to count to 10 in Japanese and
Yeah.
Korean and all these things. And then that led to study abroad. And then that led to living abroad and learning languages and a lot of adventure. So, a lot of times you don't see it at the time, of course. As a 4-year-old, I wasn't like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, and one more thing, because as a woman business owner, I want people to understand that in my upbringing, there was none of this. Women aren't to be speaking up. It was like,
Yeah.
what have you done today, Laura? What are you accomplishing? And my grandmother, this same grandmother who gave me the book, she was friends with two women who had founded multi-million dollar companies that she was friends with them since the 1950s when that wasn't done. One of them was Mary Kay Ash, who started Mary
Uh-huh.
Kay Cosmetics, and another one had started a home decorating company. So for me, like the sky was the limit. Like, what do you want to do? And I saw this same grandmother flying all over first class, and I'm like, I want to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you start to realize pretty quickly, like for me as well, travel's been super paramount.
Yeah.
And for me, it was in the beginning, it was studying abroad in college.
Hmm.
Like I went to
Hmm.
college, I studied abroad, and then I went to Israel
Oh,
for
cool.
birthright. And I just started to get these different experiences. And I realized, like, how can I recreate this? How can I do this again?
Yes.
And you start to realize you can get very creative, especially in today's day and age where everyone's remote. So,
Yes.
I mean, not saying everyone, a lot of people are in person, but last year we ended up traveling for 7 weeks around Europe.
Oh, cool. So
Yeah.
cool. Yes, yes.
And
But see,
that was,
also
yeah,
just the travel thing connects to my communication obsession
absolutely.
because like it's not just the words. That's what when I went to Spain, I was in Seville, Spain as a college student, and
Yes.
I walk into this bar, which in Spain is, a bar is also like a coffee shop, and ask for a glass of water. And they didn't understand what I was saying. It was so humiliating. But it was the frame of, oh, this young American thinks she knows Spanish. And, it was like, la, 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 we don't understand what you're saying. I mean, so it helped me to realize that communication is a lot more than just the words.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because even if you're in the places, if you're not speaking that with their tonality or that, they're just like, what are you saying? And you can't understand.
Yeah, yeah. And on the other hand, you cannot have the language, but you can, use your body or, smile a lot and work at it in other ways to get your meaning across. But we can't just rely only on the words because, words are super important, of course, but there's also other factors like the energy and, like being clear on what you want is another helpful thing to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the biggest experiences was realizing that, like you said, when you smile, when
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
happy and it's high energy, they're like, agua?
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
exactly. And I'm sure I was like coming off the flight, and I mean, I'm sure I was not giving off the right message. I was like, I want my water.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
maybe I was like wanting to show off. I don't know, but I just remember like that felt like a bucket of cold water thrown on me. And so the relationship aspect. Also, this is another thing that any of your listeners, any of you who were really good students in high school or even in college, as I was, you get thinking that it's all transactional. Like, the teacher tells you what to do, you turn it in, you do a good job, and you get A's. And see, and you go to the real world, and that works. I mean, that's important to do good work, but that is not nearly enough to be a real leader, to have influence and impact at scale. You have to make your communication work more for you than just the transactional, what have you done for me today kind of thing.
Yeah, because true leadership is when you have people or groups that you're influencing, and you usually have to influence one person, and then that one person has to influence the entire group to understand the
Yes.
message, and that's not easy to do at all.
Exactly. It's not. And yeah, and so and it helps, I think probably a lot of your listeners are, maybe you have done this, the sales training where you go into, people have to know, trust, and like
Yes.
you, right? Before they'll buy from you. But I mean, you can be a senior engineer at Google and you're not going to be successful influencing unless people know, trust, and like like you. And then those are the things that I work with in teaching executive presence, that it's not just being clear. That's imperative to be clear, but you need to be likable. You need to be trusted, and people need to be able to repeat what you've said.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the biggest tips for likability that I found, and let me
Hmm.
know if you align with
Yeah.
this, is
Yeah.
really being interested in other people.
Yes,
I
Jordan.
feel
That
like that is missed so often
it is
among
so
most
true.
people because we're so busy.
No, but also we're so concerned about being interesting and being respected and being, again, it goes to that trying to prove ourselves. Whereas, and that just, I'm just jumping around, but it just makes me think of in any kind of presentation or key message, if you're thinking about, well, I need to make sure they know that I'm so knowledgeable, then you're going to turn them off. They really don't care about whatever your idea is, except how it relates to them.
Yeah, so the biggest way I think about this, and this has helped me, is in a conversation, there's a flashlight, and the flashlight goes from one person to the other person. This is how I think about it.
Yeah, I'm writing this down. That's very
You
cool.
should. And in a
Yeah.
presentation, if your flashlight is not on the audience,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
you're in trouble. If the flash
That's
is just on
exactly right.
you, going, I'm the best, I'm the this, and this is
Mm-hmm.
selling anything
Yeah,
because we move so quickly to focus on ourselves,
yeah.
but if we help others, then we can help ourselves.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily, I mean, there's a plenty of egomaniacs and psychopaths out there, but I'm talking about, not
Someone who's trying their best that
non-egomaniacs.
doesn't know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's someone who's just trying their best. They don't know.
exactly, exactly. Because they fear, they just fear that they won't be trusted, or that they're not good enough. In the end of the day, that's the fear.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another really interesting one would be like, if we were to do an example of a conversation, I'd be like, hey, Laura, like, what's your favorite sports team? This would be an
Hmm.
example of me stealing the flashlight. Laura, what's your favorite sports team?
Yeah,
Or
the
favorite
Clemson
city?
Tigers, Clemson Tigers.
Clemson Tigers. Great, mine's Alabama. Like, I just stole her light. I didn't dive
Yeah,
in and say, why do you like the Clemson Tigers?
exactly, exactly,
And
exactly.
so that two question, three questions with people, and this is some of the stuff I do with my coaching group, where I sit
Hmm.
there and I go, guys, you got to focus on the other people a little bit more and dive a level deeper. It's not, hey, you nice paintings, and it's like,
Yeah,
thank. There's
that's so. What
yeah,
you said is so important, Jordan, because there's actual, or I should say, and there's research that proves that when you ask follow up questions, then not only does the person feel more connected to you, they actually like you more. And that's
yeah,
going to help you have influence over them. And so, yeah, like turning the flashlight back on yourself about, well, my team is this and that, then if you ask me another question like what's your favorite food, then it starts to feel like an interrogation, and I don't feel like I feel like, why is Jordan asking me these random questions, rather than, oh, this is such a good conversation, right?
absolutely. And you'll start to notice this after the podcast, where you go around and watch people interact, and they go, I this, I this, I this, and it's focus on someone else, put the light on
Yes,
other people,
yes. In
and make
fact,
sure you
a
different.
tip for the listeners as far as emails is when it's a real high stakes email, is to count the times the word I appears in that email. And I mean, it is inevitable. You have to include it some, but anytime you can flip it around to it's you or even third person, it's better. It's just something but our tendency is, of course, well, I need this, and I'm doing this, and well, nobody cares. That's the big life lesson. They don't care.
Interesting. I never even thought about that. I
Yeah,
really like that a lot because it gets you thinking a little bit differently.
exactly, exactly. And that's the whole thing, right? That we both, you from the performance point of view and me from executive presence and communication, is it really starts with how you see the situation and see yourself
Yes,
in that situation.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, Laura, what I've been doing on these podcasts is I've been hopping into a little bit of what I do with the coaching. So,
Okay.
are you open to that?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
open and totally unprepared. So just lay it
That's the
on
best.
me.
That's the best way to do it. So there's five pillars of AdWords consulting. It's mental health,
Hmm.
physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships.
Okay.
So we're gonna go one by one, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask you what your mental health is on a 1 to 10, and you can make, and if it's a 9 or a 10, then we're gonna dive into like how can we learn from this. If it's
Mm-hmm.
like a 4, it's like what's going on with you? Is there
Mm-hmm.
any way to help, kind of thing. And it gets us a framework so that the audience can better know who you are, but
Mm-hmm.
also they might have similar challenges that you're facing. So it's a little bit of all of that. So I appreciate it, Laura. What's your
Sure.
mental health on a 1 to 10, you think?
Um, well, Jordan, I really think it's at least a nine.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, and I will say though, I mean that part of that is having traveled around the sun so many times, you get to appreciate the value of mental health. If you'd asked me when I was 25, well, Laura, how's your mental health? I would have been that. That's such a stupid question. I mean, I'm not taking antidepressants, so obviously I'm fine, right? But that's
Yes.
not the whole thing. And then a lot of your pillars, like as I'm sure you know, and probably your listeners, that they're interrelated. So
Yeah.
why do I go to an exercise class that I love? Is it? I'm not trying to, have this string bikini body. I'm taking care of my mental health. Why do
Yes.
I, eat salad all the time? Well, it was when I feel better, I have better mental health, and I have a big family. I have a lot of friends. I have an active social life, and I'm having fun. So I really think that, I mean, that's pretty good for mental health. And I have savings. Do you know that's Jordan? I think a lot of people don't underestimate. Maybe not your listeners because you're in the top talking to the super top performers. But I know that when you have savings, you also can have better mental health than
Oh,
not.
absolutely. I mean, financial strain
Or
is one of
investments,
the,
investments or
yeah,
savings, but like that cushion.
financial stress is one of the biggest things that
Yeah.
stress people out, and it hurts people. And you did bring up a lot where it's you are working out consistently, you are eating healthier, you are having relationships with family and friends, and you start to realize that it's not so much, hey, I today we're working on mental health. Sometimes
No.
it is.
Sometimes
Sometimes
could be. Could be.
sometimes
Yeah.
or sometimes it's, hey, I'm just having time for myself
Right.
on my own journey and I'm going through this. So I think that's amazing. And now for your physical health on a 1 to 10, what do you think you're at? And what
I
do you think
mean,
helping you?
that's such a good question. I mean, I'm in good health. I don't take any medications. My weight is good,
Amazing.
but I'm not like this bodybuilder. You would never, if you ever see me running, Jordan, it's because there's a tiger chasing me. Okay. That's my approach to running. I take
Yeah.
walks every day. I go to my little exercise, my bar three class, which I love 2 or 3 times a week. I swim sometimes. Um, and eat healthy, but I also I drink, but only on the weekends, desserts only on the weekends. So it's like if the definition of physical health is like good moderate healthiness, I'm 10, but I'm not
Yeah.
like I don't know, like
So,
bodybuilder, anything close to that.
so my biggest takeaway from what you've said is really setting up a lifestyle that
Yes.
aids to what you're trying to do. And then also, it seems like the really big one for you is the rules. Like you said, drinks only on the weekends, dessert
Hmm.
only on the weekends. Now, the thing is, most people have no bounds for
Hmm.
what rules are or lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it causes a lot of like, I don't know if I'm going the right way. I don't know if I'm going the wrong way. I feel like I'm just going. And
Yeah, and rules can feel oppressive, right? But we don't want that either. But so me, I do. You're right. That's a great observation. I have a lot of rules, but there are rules that I can live with. Like if
well,
you told me, Laura, you can never eat bread again, I would just jump out the window. My mental health would be gone. If you told me I
well,
could never have alcohol, same.
Well, the other big thing here is that the other big thing about these rules is these aren't limiting rules. They're empowering rules saying, hey,
Oh
you have
yeah,
dessert on the weekends. Hey,
right.
you're able to do this on the weekends. So
Yeah.
it's not never do this again because when a lot of people are going through their fitness journey, they're going, I have to work out 100 times a day and I never
Right.
eat a calorie. And it's like, it's not that crazy. And also, there's been a lot of studies on walking has
Hmm.
been a major,
Yeah,
major benefit for a lot of people throughout their journey.
yeah, I think, 'cause, I mean, and I'm not walking 5 miles, folks. I'm walking like 10 to 15 minutes in the morning and maybe 20 minutes, not even every day, but I'll maybe do an evening walk of 20 minutes. It is not, I'm not setting any records, but I am consistent because it's like it's just a baby steps philosophy. Like I'm a baby steps person. And, that's, I would rather have, um, not maybe ideal health, but good health. And I'm happy about it. I don't feel deprived.
Well, the other thing is that consistency beats talent every
Yeah.
day when talent doesn't
Yeah.
work hard. They all say that. And what we don't realize is that our physical health, mental, all of these things are all about consistency. And how do you set up these easy wins for yourself? Like for myself, even with the mental health, like one of the things I really enjoy is this podcast.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
before, when I was younger, it was, hey, you ask too many questions. You do that. And now
Yeah.
it's a podcast where it's like, go ask your
Yeah,
questions.
you found
Don't
an
be
outlet.
annoying. Like,
Yeah. 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 And you
so,
learn. I
so
did. Yes. That's so fun about podcasting is learning.
So it's this whole idea of
Mhm.
how do you create this consistency in your life that allows you to get a winning scenario?
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
not always for everyone. Everyone's a little bit different. But I think it's important if someone hears something you said where they sit there and go, I don't swim, but maybe I should swim. How does swimming
Right.
work? And
Right.
like it gets them thinking a little bit differently. So I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I appreciate you sharing all this.
Oh, I'm happy to.
The next pillar, which a lot of people are challenged with or have times in their life where they
Mm.
might be open or not, it's community service and philanthropy. So it's
Mhm.
where do you think about giving to yourself? Like giving more than you currently have. And what I mean by that is like we're living in America. We're on a
Mhm.
computer. We have more than we need. We
Right. Right.
so how do you think about community service and philanthropy, if you do at all? Or
Oh
some people
yeah, I do, and I would say that I go. That's where I have struggled. I'll say, my husband runs a 501(c)(3 of music education, so sometimes I'm feeling like, well, I live with a nonprofit. I'm helping them all the time, um, but I do. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I should be, helping more. But on the other hand, I have six grandchildren under the
Oh my
age of
God.
three, under the age of three. So I'm
Wow.
constantly looking for, can I send this daughter-in-law a meal? Can I help this daughter with getting paying for their preschool? Because for families today, especially with the price of housing, because these are all people in their 20s, and it's hard, right? I think it's harder now to start off and be financially ahead of the game if you've just gotten out of college.
1,000%. It
So,
is
so my community service right now is more focused on
family.
family. I sing in the choir in my church. Is that
Yeah.
community service? I don't know.
I would think that could
Uh,
be a
Could
moment.
be, yeah. So that
Like,
that's an answer I will waffle a little bit
no,
about.
no, no. That's okay. But that's where growth happens, Laura. Like
Yes.
by you sharing that, going like, I don't know if I do much, and then you're like, well, I do commit to the church. Like I
Hmm.
do activities for the church, and then you're like, I do have six grandchildren, so I want to be present
Yeah.
in their lives. And like
Yeah.
even last week, we were talking like you went to Georgia to see them,
Yes.
like, talk
Yes.
to the family
Exactly.
member. Like
Exactly.
so,
Yes.
we're the whole point is everyone's got their own version of what a 10 is. And sometimes
Yes.
we have these expectations, just as you teach with communications, where we have community service philanthropy. Expectation is you run a foundation and you're raising millions of
Right. And
dollars.
you're on the
So,
board of the top, environmental and
yes.
whatever, those boards.
So the expectation doesn't have to be that because the truth is you control your own expectation.
Yes.
So by
Yes.
doing that, you're so much more empowered of like, hey, I want to be super present in my kid's life.
Yeah.
Cool. If that's
Yeah.
a goal, then that's very different than I have to meet on a weekly board every week. Like
Right. Right.
you
Right.
consider these differently and you start to realize what's important to you and what might not be as important. So I really appreciate you sharing these because this is not, I know it's a challenging and a different activity for the podcast, but it gets you
Yeah.
thinking in the audience thinking like, hey, where do I need to show up better in my life?
Right, right. And I'm a big, supporter of families, but I realize everybody listening may not have a family, and a nonprofit can provide a community, but that's not the only source either. I think one of my daughters-in-law has a little tea every month for her mom friends who have toddlers, and that's a form of community service because, you know,
You're
uh,
bringing the community together.
yeah, bringing people together and parents of toddlers, if any of you have toddlers, I am very impressed. I forgot how hard that is, and they're insane. So you are doing a good thing by keeping them alive every day. That's a huge community service.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then the next one is relationships. So how do you think you're doing on relationships?
Well, I would say pretty good. I mean, I've had my failures. I'm divorced and remarried, but I've been married for the second time for 15 years, and it's
Oh,
it's
wow.
good. It's
That's
good.
incredible.
And friends, I'm blessed with this, circle of close friends. And this is, I know you listening, may have find it hard to believe, but I am a hardcore introvert. Like I would much rather stay at home and read a book than go out any day of
Sure.
the week. But
How do you,
I
I
feel,
read that on your website as
mm,
well, the introvert, but
yeah.
it seems like you've created a life where you stepped out of that comfort zone.
Oh,
So
yeah, for
how
sure.
do you do that? Because running a podcast is one thing, being married for that long, maintaining friendships, you start looking around, you're like, you've traveled a lot, so it's like you haven't even been in the same area for the longest time. Like you're constantly,
Yeah.
so how do you think about that?
Thank you for asking that. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. So I'll say that for you introverts listening, what helps us is to control, to control the situation because what we like to do is prepare. So in a podcast, like when I have a guest, I have questions prepared. And I even have notes for things I want to talk about. If so, all of those podcast conversations, which are fascinating, I kind of know what I'm going to ask, what we're going to talk about. Whereas at a big party where you don't know people, you're starting from scratch. Like, oh, it brings you to this event, and it could be fun. I do admit every time I go to a party, I have a good time, but I will always prefer to stay home. But getting out of my comfort zone, I have found that by having a little bit of control and preparing, if you prepare even
Well,
for a party, you're going to be better. You're going to have a better experience.
I was gonna say, like that whole instance that you brought up about the party, when you really sit there and think about it,
Hmm.
if you go with guiding questions of like, yes, it could be how do you know the host? One question for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like we were talking about earlier in this call, if you just focus on somebody else, like
True. It's true. But I can tell you that the introvert, that's our worst point is like, oh my gosh, what should I say? I don't even know. I don't even know this person. And so we're just like deer in the headlights, brains completely shut down. And we hate like just boring, routine, like how's the weather kind of
you want to
questions.
get past you want to get past the
Mhm.
hard questions. So that's so
Yeah.
funny because for me, we went to Cancun on vacation.
Ooh,
And
fun.
it was with my family and then one of my best friends, his
Hmm.
family. There was like 11 of us. And the problem is that at dinner sometimes everyone has like, what's going on? Like random side
Yeah.
conversation. Instead of
Yeah.
being inclusive on the conversation, I always go, what are you grateful for?
Oh,
And
that's a good one.
everyone go like someone will share something
Hmm.
and then someone else will share something else and it's like a popcorn, so it's like
Yeah.
you like I send it to you, then you send it to somebody else, and it allows everybody to know what everyone else is grateful for, so it's a good activity. And you all
Yes, it
sit there,
is.
and it's funny because a lot of people go, that was a super uncomfortable and weird, but I appreciated it, and I'm like, if I didn't ask that question, then we wouldn't have had a conversation at all, and it wouldn't have gotten where we need to
Exactly.
get it to. So
Jordan,
you
I'm
got
totally stealing that. That is
you
so
should.
good. Yeah, and I'll give a variation for our audience, for the even more introverted. So I love Jordan's like I ask him what is he grateful for, and he asks somebody else.
Yeah.
But if you really like to plan, you can write down and on a piece of paper, like what was your favorite toy when you were 10 years old, or what's a movie that impacted you? And you just write down these questions and fold them up and have everybody answer one at the table.
Yes.
And that's fun. And you find out something about the person that you wouldn't ordinarily know. And yes, it's a little bit weird for most people, but they know at my house. Where are the questions, Laura? What are you going to ask us?
Well, it gets people thinking differently than the normal
Yes.
options. That's why
Yes.
those games are super empowering.
Yes. They're
But the
fun.
ones where you
Yes.
pull a card and you're like, oh, it was like, I don't know. There's some different ones where they're like, have you ever been to a hockey game? And it's like some people
Yeah.
are yes, some people are no. And it's this super interesting way of like, how do you learn about yourself? How do you learn about the people you're around? And how do you grow in those communications? And that's one of the things I like to do. And I think it makes a big difference when you're having conversations.
Yes, absolutely it does. And it is a great way. It's just that sometimes we introverts like overthink it because we're very analytical and just miss the whole point. So, yeah, I love your suggestion and your way of thinking about it. I mean, how else can you, I mean, doing something together, yes, but you're going to limit yourself if you're only friends with the people that you work with, for example.
100%. And it shows you how do you make new friends and how do you communicate with
Yeah,
others and how do you go
yeah.
about that in a different way. So the last pillar is spirituality.
Hmm.
So how do you think about spirituality? This could be religion or it doesn't have to be. It's
Yeah,
kind
it
of up
doesn't
to
have
you.
to be, but in my case, it is. I'm a Roman Catholic, and I will say over the year, it's been closer, less close, closer, less close. But again, I see now that helps with your mental health, believing in that there's something more to life than just the molecules. Like what makes the molecules stick together, um, and the Judeo-Christian tradition has a lot of mental health built into it, like don't steal, don't be envious, don't commit adultery. I mean, if we all I mean, those are spiritual, but they're also super practical norms for living. And I just think being aware of a higher power takes a lot of pressure off of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people have said just I think what it is the biggest challenge is if you're not part of something,
Hmm.
then you have to create your own value
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
which is cool. But you just got to be knowing that you're creating a system.
Yes.
If you're
Which
part
is
of a religion, they kind of have a value base around it.
right.
And then it's like, okay, go to that value base. And you can
Hmm.
kind of like lean into that, lean out of it. It's not a huge deal, but you
Right.
need a value base because if you're not deciding a value base, someone else is deciding a value base for you.
Exactly. And then are you deciding like based on, well, how do I feel right now? I mean, yeah, but again, it's a lot of cognitive load. You have to decide what's right and what's wrong. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of it is people like who don't believe have told me, "Oh, Laura, it's all common sense." Well, a lot of it, yes, but then there are things that are not common sense, I think.
And
And then bringing up
it's kind of,
children, how do you bring up children? Like how to me that's such a big responsibility. Like how do you know that whatever the values you decided on are going to work for them?
and it's not even so much of it's common sense, but it's more of it's always a reminder of that there's another way to live.
Yeah.
The whole in Jewish community they have like the Sabbath where everyone stays at
Hmm.
home, no phones.
Yeah.
I don't follow it. I think it's very valuable though.
Yeah, exactly,
Like
exactly. But
like
see, that's
like
fair. You're saying that's a good thing. It has a lot of merit. I'm not doing it, but I see it as a good thing.
and I might do it at some point. You never
Yeah,
know. Like that's
you're
the
right.
thing with stuff. We're always so I think the biggest thing you can learn from all of this is like even through 4 out of 5 of these that you spoke on, you said how you're like at one point I was this, at one point I'm
Hmm.
higher, at one point
Right,
I'm lower,
right.
like we're all going through changes constantly, and I think that's so
Yes.
important to realize because if we don't, then we think my life is permanent, and your life
Hmm.
is never permanent. It's always
No, it's always changing. Yes. If you're having a great day, it's going to change. If you're having a terrible day, it's going to change. So that is part of it. But it's nice to have like some things that's why I think that when you grow in wisdom, you learn to see that having these routines that you do, whether you're
Yes.
having a good day or a bad day, you go for a walk and you eat a salad and you only have a drink on a weekend. I mean, those things like get us through because, I mean, Jordan, we can all agree that life is just hard, even though we're in the first world and we're all wealthy. But, you know, um, you like sometimes the grocery store messes up your grocery delivery and then they don't deliver what you ordered and that was what you're going to fix for dinner and that's annoying. Is that a
Yeah.
first is that like a life or death issue? No, but it's annoying. But there's a lot of things that are much worse that people deal with. Making
Yeah, and
light of it.
you're absolutely right. And it's hard to like, how do you not let these little things bother? But I mean, it's also like mistakes occur. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yes,
time
yes.
out. So it's really, I think the biggest thing you were saying there is like that building of a routine that you're actually proud of, and then
Mm-hmm.
doing the same thing over and over and over again, whatever that may be. Like this morning, I mean, and I started this probably over a year ago, where I go to Muay Thai. It's like a self-defense thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Hmm.
really self-defense. It's more of a mixed martial art, but
Okay.
I do it as a
Sounds
self-defense.
cool. Yeah.
And I go Tuesday and Thursdays at 6 a.m. So it
Mm-hmm.
helps me get my morning routine in order on those days so that I'm up early, I'm getting after it, I'm doing something different, I'm learning a new skill. And we don't do that enough. I
Right,
already
and you're
feel it
getting
now.
the chemical reaction to your brain, endorphins, and a dopamine hit, and so you're feeling better. And then I'm sure there are mornings that you really do not want to go, but if you go anyway, and then Jordan, that's so important because you building that being proud of yourself. I think
Yes.
that's overlooked and seeking outside validation. But at the end of the day, you have to be proud of yourself. That's really where you want to land because that's the source of the insecurity when, well, I'm really not sure. I'm not sure what my values are. I'm not sure if I'm proud of myself. That's makes you weak.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny that you bring this up because I had a Thursday call this
Hmm.
morning and we talked about what was the top three things that occurred in your life.
Hmm.
Not in your life, in the quarter. And a lot
Okay.
of things were external validation. And I wanted
Oh.
to realize very quickly that I'm like, hey, like you getting a promotion, that's great. But like you got to realize like you can't like you can mimic that, but you really can't. Like hitting
Hmm.
a work goal, you can mimic that, but you really like some of it you can't. Getting recognized for something you can like it's hard to mimic those things. So it's
Right.
what are the values and the basis of like what I actually did that got me there, so that you're not confined to, hey, if I don't get an award now, I'm a loser.
Exactly, exactly. And then that's why I need to go jump through this other hoop to get another certificate or another, something for my wall. Yeah, yeah, that's so true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Laura, where can people learn more about you? Where can they learn about your podcast? Where can they learn about
Oh,
everything you got going on?
thank you so much. Well, I think the one-stop shop would be my website, which is speakupwithlaura.com. And there's a link to the podcast there. If you it's Speak Up, Develop Your Executive Presence. And I'm on LinkedIn. But website is definitely where you'll find everything Laura Camacho, executive presence, communication, especially really focused on high performing introverts who want to, achieve more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I actually looked at the website and it is fantastic. Like,
Oh,
I was
thank you.
recognized, I'm like, I got to do some of this stuff. I gotta get your website designer. But thank you so much
Oh, he's
for
so
coming on. This has
good.
been awesome.
Yes, it's been a delight. Thank you so much.